Hello there. Welcome to video 154 from Sumit Academy. I do hope that you have subscribed to my channel. Do subscribe now so that you do not miss out on my previous or future videos. And do remember to like and share this video too. To make your task a little easier, here is a complete list of all the 154 videos available on my YouTube channel. The list is divided into the playlists under which they are available. Do have a look. In this video, we shall study the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976. The origin of bonded labor can be traced back to ancient times when Hindu society was divided into caste structures. The lower caste strata did not have sufficient means for their own sustenance, due to which they often depended on the higher castes for their survival. Due to extreme scarcity of resources on the part of the debtor, he had nothing to offer as security. Thus, the creditor and debtor entered into an agreement where the debtor pledged his person and work in lieu of unsatisfied debt. There still exists in different parts of the country a system of usury under which the debtor or his descendants or dependents have to work for the creditor without reasonable wages, or as most times with no wages, in order to extinguish the debt. At times, several generations work under the bondage for the repayment of a paltry sum which had been taken by some remote ancestor. The interest rates are exorbitant, and such bondage cannot be realized as a result of any legitimate contract or agreement. The system implies the infringement of the basic human rights and destruction of the dignity of human labor. It represents the relationship between a creditor and a debtor, wherein the debtor undertakes to mortgage his services or the services or any of his family members to the creditor for a specified or most often unspecified period, with or without wages, accompanied by denial of choice of alternative avenues of employment, or to deny him freedom of movement. When India achieved independence in 1947, it became free from the political and economic slavery of a foreign country. However, it was still facing the problem of slavery in its own society, despite the values of equality and justice enshrined in the Constitution. With the passing of years, this abhorrent practice continued to grow and was in its most brutal form in mines, stone quarries, brick kilns, plantations, and agricultural fields. In the backdrop of the emergency imposed in the country, the Bonded Labor System Abolition Ordinance was promulgated in 1975 to abolish the practice of physical, social, and economic exploitation of labor. It was subsequently passed by Parliament in 1976 but came into force retrospectively on 25th of October 1975. The Honorable Supreme Court of India has from time to time interpreted various constitutional provisions to safeguard the weaker strata of society against the menace of bonded labor. The ambit of this act has been clarified by the court in several cases, including the Bandhua Mukti Morcha case of 1984 and the Asiad Workers case of 1982. In the People's Union for Democratic Reform versus Union of India in 1992, the Apex Court clarified that when a person provides labor or service to another against receipt of remuneration which is less than the minimum wage, he is acting under some force or some compulsion which drives him to work, though he is paid less than what he is entitled under law to receive. So, what are the constitutional provisions on which this act is based? The first of these is the Preamble itself, which includes the words social, economic, and political justice. Then comes Article 14, which states that the state must ensure equality before law and equal protection of the law. Article 17 says that the state must make such laws to encourage the abolition of untouchability. Under Article 23, there is a blanket prohibition on human trafficking, begar, and other forms of forced labor. Article 42 ensures just and humane conditions of work, while Article 43 states that it is the duty of the state to secure by legislation living wage for all workers, whether industrial, agricultural, or otherwise. Let us now have a look at the international standards on forced labor. The Forced Labor Convention 1930 prohibits all kinds of forced and compulsory labor and provided penal provisions to punish. Exceptions to this rule were compulsory military service, normal civic duty, work as per conviction of court, emergency, and minor communal services. These will not be considered as bonded labor. Article 4 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Next, Abolition of Forced Labor Convention 1957 prohibits forced or compulsory labor as a result of political coercion, education, or holding some specific political views, or as punishment for strikes, or due to national, religious, social, and racial discrimination. ILO's worst form of child labor convention 1999 specifically includes debt bondage, serfdom, and forced labor among children. The protocol of the conventions from 1930 to 2014 all provide for not only protection but also rehabilitation of such laborers. And now we move on to the important provisions of the Act. First of all, the Act specifies as to who is a bonded labor. This includes forced or partly forced labor who has advance obtained by him or any of his lineal ascendants or descendants, and in consideration of the interest, customary or social obligation, or obligation devolving in him by succession or birth in a particular caste or community, is forced to work for someone to pay off the debt. Under Section 4 of the Act, the primary relief that was awarded to the bonded laborers with the commencement of the Act was that the bonded laborers stood discharged from any sort of obligation to provide bonded labor. Under Section 5 of the Act, any custom, agreement, contract, or any other instrument by which any person or his family was required to work or render any service was declared void and inoperative. Section 6 of the Act laid down that any unpaid bonded debt of the bonded labor will be deemed as extinguished, as completed, as fully paid. No suit can be filed before any civil court for recovery of bonded debt. Even the attached property for recovery of such debt or forceful possession of any such property will be vacated. This section also laid down that every decree or order for the recovery of bonded debt passed before the commencement of this Act and not fully satisfied before such commencement shall be deemed on such commencement to have been fully satisfied as paid in full. Under Section 7 of the Act, any property which is under mortgage vis-a-vis bonded debt will stand freed on commencement of the Act. Any person detained in civil prison in pursuance of the bonded debt shall be freed as per the provisions of the Act. Under Section 8 of the Act, A bonded labor who has been freed shall not be evicted from homestead or other residential premises which he was occupying as part of consideration for the bonded labor. That means if the person holding him in bond had given him a place to live, he could not be evicted from there. So, who is the implementing authority for this act? The act says that the state government may impose duties and confer powers on district magistrates to implement this act. The district magistrate may further devolve such powers and duties to his subordinate officer as deemed necessary. The state government also has the responsibility to form vigilance committees in every district or subdivision as it may deem necessary, with the district magistrate or SDM as its chairperson. This committee is to provide for social and economic rehabilitation of free bonded labor and defend any suit filed against freed labor or their family members for recovery of debt. A rehabilitation grant of rupees 20,000 each to each of the bonded laborers is to be granted by the committee. Quite a revolutionary act. As for the penalties, the offence under the act is cognizable and bailable. Any person who contravenes provisions of the act is punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years and also with a fine which may extend to 2,000 rupees. According to a global slavery index, India has been a poor performer as far as enforcement of anti-slavery laws is concerned. The reasons for the same are attributed to an under-resourced judiciary and police force. Over the years, bonded labor has increased its scope and the way it affects the life of these people. Often, the people from the rural areas, especially the Dalits, are lured by human traffickers, only to find themselves toiling as laborers in factories or working in brothels without their consent. The 2018 study found that more than 80 lakh people were living in modern slavery on any given day in India. There were 6.1 victims per thousand people in India. The main reason for the high incidence of slavery are forced labor, forced sexual exploitation of adults and children, forced marriage, and organ trafficking. The poor states are the worst performers in the implementation of the Act, as poverty and caste structure are the most important causes of the bonded labor system. Making legislation is quite different from its implementation. A strong political and social will is required from not only political parties but from society as a whole to get rid of this inhuman practice. Emphasis has to be given on the functioning of government agencies along with the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, so as to ensure that they act in concert. While the government has the authority, resources, and expertise to enforce the law, the non governmental organizations have the grassroots connections to report any violation of law to the government agencies. Do remember that the bonded labor system has existed in India since ancient times and will require efforts from you, me and the entire society to eliminate this evil. Well, that's all from me in this video. This video is based on the information freely available on the internet. No originality is claimed for the same. The intention of this video is only to prepare candidates for answering examination questions on the subject and not for any financial gains. Do like and share this video and do subscribe to my channel now so that you do not miss out on my previous or future videos. Till later then, cheerio.